I want to start with a scenario that I think is going to feel uncomfortably familiar for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up, maybe it's January 1st, maybe it's just a random Tuesday where you've had enough, and you decide, this is it. The upgrade happens now.
Right, the big moment.
Exactly. You buy the fancy running shoes, you download the language app, you throw out all the junk food. For like 3 days, you are an absolute machine. You are the protagonist in your own training montage.
And then comes day 4.
Then comes day 4,
Yeah.
or, maybe day 10 if you're really stubborn. But eventually, the montage music fades.
Yeah.
You miss one run because it's raining. You eat one cookie because work was awful. And suddenly, the whole thing just collapses, and you're back to being the old you, wondering why you have zero willpower.
It's that cycle of doom, We treat self-improvement like this dramatic intervention, but the human brain, it's just not wired for drama. It's wired for efficiency.
That distinction, efficiency versus drama, that's exactly why we wanted to do this deep dive. We're looking at The Habits Guide by James Clear.
Of course. Atomic Habits. The book is basically the Bible of behavioral change at this point.
Totally. But we're not just, reading the back cover here. We've gone through a stack of his articles, his newsletters, the core research he cites to really figure out why we are so good at setting goals and, so bad at actually sticking to them.
And the mission here is to get past the just try harder advice. Because if willpower was really the answer, we'd all be like Olympians with perfect credit scores. We need to unpack the actual mechanics of why we do what we do.
Okay, so let's get right into the meat of it. I think most of us operate under the assumption that we're in the driver's seat of our lives, like 100% of the time.
Right. I choose to do this. I choose to do that.
Yes. But there's a stat from researchers at Duke University that suggests we are barely even touching the steering wheel.
It is a staggering number. I remember the first time I read it. The researchers found that habits account for about 40% of our behaviors on any given day.
40%.
40%.
That's almost half your waking life.
Just think about what that actually means for a second. It means almost half of what you do isn't a conscious choice. It's a script.
A script.
Yeah. You don't decide to check Instagram when you wake up. You don't decide to put your left sock on first. You don't decide to drive that specific route to work. You're essentially a biological robot running a program for almost half of your existence.
That is.
Wow.
It's simultaneously really efficient and also kind of terrifying.
It explains a lot, doesn't it?
It even explains why time seems to speed up as we get older. We're just running on autopilot more and more.
Exactly. And it creates this huge problem for self-improvement. Because if you look at your life right now, your fitness, your bank account, your stress levels, James Clear argues that these aren't the results of big one-time decisions.
They're lagging indicators.
They are the lagging indicators of your habits. Your weight is a lagging indicator of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging indicator of your learning habits.
So we're all sitting here trying to change the result, the number on the scale or the bank account, but we're completely ignoring the machine that's actually generating that result.
Precisely. And this leads us right into the biggest trap he talks about in the source material. The whole conflict between goal setting and identity.
Okay, but set a goal is, it's the standard advice for everything. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a novel. Why does he think that's a trap?
Because goals are binary. You either succeed or you fail. But more importantly, goals are about the outcome. They don't address the system or, and this is the key part, the beliefs behind the action.
Okay, unpack that a little for me. If I want to lose weight, isn't that a good outcome to focus on?
It's a fine outcome, but it can be temporary. Let's look at his concept of identity-based habits.
No.
The old way is outcome-based, I want to run a marathon.
Right.
So you force yourself to train. But deep down, your internal narrative, your identity is still, I am a lazy person who is currently forcing myself to run.
You're an imposter in your own gym shoes.
Exactly. And that cognitive dissonance is exhausting. Sooner or later, stress hits, life gets in the way, and you just revert to your true identity. Clear argues that behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last.
So what's the alternative then? Are we supposed to just stand in the mirror and chant, I am an athlete, until we believe it? Because that sounds a little too manifestation for me,
No, it's not about blind affirmation. It's about voting. This is probably my favorite metaphor in the entire guide.
A vote. Okay, I like that.
Every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
Right.
So you don't start with, I want to run a marathon. You start with the identity, I am a runner, Now, how do you prove that to yourself?
You go for a run.
You go for a jog, even a short one. You just cast one vote for runner. You choose a salad over a burger for lunch. That's a vote for healthy person.
So it's less about faking it till you make it and more about building a pile of evidence for yourself.
Exactly. You are proving your new identity to yourself with these small wins. The goal isn't to run the marathon. The goal is to be a runner. A runner runs regardless of whether there's a race on the calendar. Once you shift that identity, the habit becomes so much easier because you're just acting like yourself.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It stops being a battle against your nature and starts being an expression of it.
Yeah.
But I do want to push back on this a little. Sometimes I know who I want to be, but I have these really sticky bad habits that just won't go away.
Yeah.
I want to be a productive writer, but I end up doom scrolling for 2 hours. Is that just a lack of character on my part?
Oh, we love to blame our character, don't we? I'm just lazy. I have an addictive personality. But the research he points to suggests that discipline, as we think of it, is largely a myth.
A myth. That's a bold claim.
Well, the people who look like they have incredible self-control, they aren't necessarily stronger or better than you. They're just better at designing their environment so they don't have to use willpower in the first place. And this brings us to probably the most fascinating case study in the whole stack. The Vietnam War heroin study.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about this years ago and being so skeptical, but the data is just wild. Can you set the scene for us?
Absolutely. So it's 1971. The Vietnam War is raging. Two congressmen, Robert Steele and Morgan Murphy, go visit the troops, and they come back with this terrifying report. They find that somewhere between 15 and 20% of American soldiers in Vietnam were addicted to heroin.
Which is just a massive crisis waiting to happen back home. The government must have been panicking.
Panic is an understatement. They were bracing for this tidal wave of addiction to hit American streets. The assumption was, once your brain is hooked on heroin, you're an addict for life.
That's the conventional wisdom. Once an addict, always an addict.
But then the soldiers came home, and a researcher named Lee Robbins tracked them. What she found was that when they returned to the U.S., 95% of them just stopped.
Stopped.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Just stopped. They didn't go to rehab. They didn't have these terrible withdrawal nightmares. They just stopped using.
How is that even biologically possible? I mean, we're talking about heroin here.
It violates everything we thought we knew about addiction, but the key wasn't their willpower, it was the environment.
The environment.
In Vietnam, the soldiers were surrounded by triggers. Constant high stress, super easy access to drugs, friends who were using, the chaos of war. The entire environment screamed, do heroin.
And when they got home?
All those cues were gone. The stress was different. The drug wasn't available at the corner store. Their friends weren't using.
So the habit didn't travel because the context didn't travel with them.
Correct. And this is his environment design principle. If you're trying to use willpower to stop eating cookies, but those cookies are sitting right there on the counter staring at you, you're fighting a losing war. You have to expend mental energy every single time you walk by.
And eventually you just get tired and you eat the cookie.
But if you just throw the cookies away, if you change the environment, you don't need willpower. The trigger is gone.
So for you listening right now, if you're sitting in bed scrolling on your phone when you know you should be sleeping,
the answer isn't try harder to not look. The answer is buy an old school alarm clock and charge your phone in the kitchen overnight. Make the bad habit invisible, or at least difficult.
I love that because it takes the morality out of it. You're not a bad person, you just have a poorly designed bedroom.
We are all architects of our own choices. If you want to drink more water, put full water bottles in every room you use. If you want to practice guitar, take it out of the closet and put it on a stand in the middle of the living room.
Stop relying on discipline and start relying on design.
That's the whole idea.
Okay, so we've got identity, which is the internal shift, and the environment, the external shift. But I want to get tactical. I'm a learner listening to this, and I want tools I can actually use tomorrow. The source material lists a few strategies that are honestly kind of brilliant in their simplicity.
Yeah, there are a few real standouts. One that I think is incredibly effective, especially for people who feel stuck, is the paperclip strategy.
This one is great. It sounds like something from an office nightmare, but tell us the story.
It comes from a sales guy back in the 90s. He was a stockbroker, and he had 2 jars on his desk. One was empty, one was filled with 120 paper clips.
Very low tech. I like it.
Very low tech. His goal was to make 120 sales calls a day. Every single time he made a call, he'd move one paper clip from the full jar to the empty one.
And he wouldn't go home until
the first jar was empty.
So why does that work better than just keeping a tally on a piece of paper.
Because it's visceral, it's visual. We are visual creatures.
Mm.
When you're doing the work, making the call, doing one push-up, the reward is often way, way delayed.
Mhm.
You don't get rich from one call, you don't get fit from one push-up, but moving that clip, that's immediate satisfaction. You can physically see the progress piling up.
It gamifies it.
It totally does. It creates this visual chain of evidence that you are taking action. And you can do this with anything. Marbles, coins, moving books from one shelf to another. It just anchors the habit in physical reality.
Okay, speaking of chains, I saw a note about the Seinfeld strategy. Please tell me this involves a bass guitar or a puffy shirt.
Huh. Sadly, no puffy shirt.
Mm.
But it is legendary in the productivity world. The story goes that a young comedian asked Jerry Seinfeld, this is back when he was touring constantly, how to get better at writing jokes.
And Seinfeld's advice wasn't be funnier.
No. He said, get a big wall calendar that has the whole year on one page and hang it somewhere you'll see it every day. For every day that you write jokes, you put a big red X over that day.
Okay.
And Seinfeld said, after a few days, you'll have a chain. Just keep at it, and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you get a few weeks under your belt. Your only job, he said, is to not break the chain.
Don't break the chain. So it shifts the focus from, is this joke any good, to simply, did I show up today?
Exactly. It removes the pressure of quality and focuses entirely on consistency. Because you can't improve a joke you never wrote. The Seinfeld strategy forces you to show up even on the bad days, just to keep that beautiful visual streak alive.
I've actually used this for flossing. It sounds ridiculous, but once you have 10 X's in a row, you feel genuinely guilty about not putting that 11th one up. You're protecting your streak.
That's the psychology of loss aversion. We hate losing the progress we've already made.
Okay, so we have paper clips for tracking, Seinfeld for consistency. But what about the things we just really, really don't want to do? Like, I know I need to fold the laundry, but I hate it. Or clearing my inbox. Is there a hack for that?
There is, and it's called temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. Sounds like a marketing term.
It's pure behavioral engineering. The concept is to link an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Okay, give me an example.
So the classic example is from a study where they wanted people to exercise more. They gave participants an audiobook of a really gripping thriller, something they were dying to listen to.
But the rule was, you can only listen to the audiobook while you are at the gym.
Oh, that's devious. So if you want to find out who the killer is, you have to get on the treadmill.
Precisely. You are bundling the temptation, the story, with the necessary habit, the exercise. You can do this at home. I can only watch my trashy reality TV show while I am folding laundry.
Right, or I can only listen to my favorite podcast while I'm doing the dishes.
Exactly. It stops you from dreading the chore because you're actually looking forward to the treat that comes with it. And eventually your brain starts to associate the chore with the treat. The dread it dissipates.
I love that. Okay, one last strategy I want to touch on because I think it addresses that mental fatigue we talked about, the concept of bright line rules.
This is for the people who spend all day negotiating with themselves. Should I have a donut? Well, I did walk to work. Maybe just half of one. But it's glazed.
That internal debate is the soundtrack to my life. It's called decision fatigue. You are burning precious mental energy just deciding whether or not to do something. A bright line rule is a clear, unambiguous boundary. It's not, I'll try to eat less sugar. It is, I do not eat sugar on weekdays.
It sounds so restrictive, though.
It is restrictive, but that restriction actually creates freedom. If the rule is, I don't eat sugar on weekdays, when someone offers you a donut on a Tuesday, there's no decision to make.
The answer is just no.
The answer is no. You don't have to use willpower. You just execute the rule. It shuts down the negotiation before it even starts.
And it preserves your mental energy for the things that actually matter.
100%.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. We've got the identity shift, the environment design, this whole toolkit of strategies. But I want to zoom out for a second, because when you read Atomic Habits, the word atomic is doing double duty. It means small, like an atom. But atoms are also, the source of immense power.
That is the core philosophy, the idea of the 1% improvement.
It sounds so cliche, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just get 1% better. It feels like something on a corporate motivational poster.
It does, until you actually look at the math. And the math is kind of crazy. If you get 1% better each day for 1 year, you end up 37 times better by the time you're done.
37 times better.
Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day, you degrade down to almost nothing. The problem is that 1% is invisible in the moment.
Right.
If you study French for 15 minutes today, you still don't speak French. If you eat one salad today, you weren't skinny tomorrow.
That's the danger zone. I think Clear calls it the valley of disappointment, right?
Yes. That period where you are putting in the work, you are casting the votes, you are moving the paper clips, but the external world hasn't caught up yet. You don't see the results.
And that's where most people quit. They say, I've been running for 2 weeks and I still look the same. This doesn't work.
But it is working. You're just storing up potential. There is a great quote in the guide. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour.
Laying bricks every hour. That really hits home.
We look at successful people and we see Rome. We see the finished product. We don't see the years and years of them just laying bricks when nothing looked like a city yet.
So the message to you, the listener, is stop looking for the city. Just lay the brick.
Lay one brick, move one paperclip, put one X on the calendar. That is all you can control. The outcome will eventually take care of itself.
I think that's a really necessary reframing. We are so obsessed with the finish line that we keep tripping over the starting line.
We do. And we judge our days by the harvest we reap when we should be judging them by the seeds we plant.
Okay, let's synthesize this for the learner who's ready to go. We've thrown a lot at you.
We have. So, step 1. Realize that 40% of your life is just autopilot. You need to take control of the programming.
Step 2. Stop focusing on the goal, I want to read, and focus on the identity, I am a reader. Then prove it to yourself with small wins.
Step 3. Be the architect of your environment. If you want to break a bad habit, make it invisible. Don't fight the Vietnam War in your own living room. Just remove the triggers.
And finally, use the tools. Paper clips for visual progress, Seinfeld chains for consistency, temptation bundling to make the hard stuff bearable, and bright line rules to just stop the mental chatter.
All of it in service of that tiny 1% improvement.
It's such a powerful toolkit.
Yeah.
And it really does demystify why we fail. It's not that we're broken, it's just that we haven't read the instruction manual for our own brains.
Exactly. We're trying to run new software on old hardware without, updating the operating system first.
Before we sign off, I want to leave everyone listening with something to chew on. Is there a final question or a thought from the source material that just sums this all up?
There is, and it goes right back to that idea of voting. If you accept the premise that your life is essentially the sum of your habits, I want you to look back at what you did yesterday. Not what you planned to do, not what you hoped to do, but what you actually did. And ask yourself this question. If I repeat those actions every day for the next year, what kind of person am I voting to become?
Oof. That is the kind of question that can keep you up at night. What kind of person am I voting to become?
Every action is a vote. Just make sure you're voting for the person you actually want to be.
That is a perfect place to leave it. Thank you for walking us through all this. I feel like I need to go reorganize my entire living room now.
Just start with one brick.
Will do. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into James Clear's The Habits Guide. We'll see you next time. Keep laying those bricks.